The day had been heavy with silence and fatigue, but this evening would prove different. James, returning from days of weariness, turned his car toward the familiar house where Deep and her daughter, little Nhi, waited. For weeks, life had been no stranger to hardship, yet tonight promised something softer, something more luminous. He had prepared a surprise that would change the texture of their evening, a doorway of light. As the last rays of the sun poured through a narrow window, James parked his car, pausing to draw a long, steady breath. It was not simply fatigue he exhaled, but the residue of difficult days behind him. When the front door opened, a small figure bounded into view. "Uncle James is back," Nhi cried, her clear voice carrying both joy and relief. Her eyes, like two tiny lanterns themselves, glowed as she ran across the yard. James bent low, scooping her up into his arms before spinning her in a playful whirl. Her laughter pealed through the evening air, a sound that erased the day's exhaustion. From inside, Deep emerged, wiping her hands on an apron still dusted with flour. She smiled, a gentle curve of reassurance. "You're back," she said simply. "I'm preparing dinner." James removed his jacket and offered a nod. "Let me help tonight. I want this to be a dinner we'll remember, a kitchen of warmth." The kitchen, though modest, brimmed with laughter as the three worked together. James's clumsy attempt to peel a carrot resulted in a misshapen stub that sent Deep into a fit of laughter. Nhi, holding her belly, giggled until her cheeks turned crimson. The table, once set, glowed with warmth. Food was shared, stories exchanged, and for a while, shadows of the past seemed to dissolve in the steam of hot dishes. Then, as plates emptied and conversation lingered, James leaned back with a mysterious smile. "After dinner, change your clothes," he said, lowering his voice as though sharing a secret. "I have a special gift for you both." Deep looked at him with surprise, while Nhi nearly leapt from her chair in curiosity. "What is it, Uncle James?" "You'll see," he answered with a wink. "The lantern streets." Soon after, the car rolled toward town. As the road curved, a world of color opened before them, the Mid-Autumn Festival in full bloom. Lanterns stretched endlessly on both sides, glowing like rivers of fireflies. Nhi pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "So beautiful," she whispered. "I've never seen so many lanterns." Beside her, Deep smiled with a quiet radiance. The fatigue that had shadowed her face for months softened into joy. They joined the bustling crowd at the square. Drums thundered, lion dancers roared, and lanterns shimmered in countless hues. James purchased a jade rabbit lantern for NHI, who hugged it to her chest as though it were the most precious gift she had ever received. Deep watched silently, her eyes welling with something deeper than happiness. For the first time in many months of hardship, she felt the return of a simple, unburdened joy. Fireworks blossomed overhead, scattering fragments of light across the night sky. James spoke softly, almost to himself. My only hope is to give you both moments like this, forever. Deep turned to him, her eyes catching the reflection of the fireworks. She nodded, her smile now carrying the weight of trust. A night of festivities. The lion dancers paraded closer, their drums vibrating through the square. NHI tugged eagerly at James's hand. Uncle James, can we go closer? Hand in hand, they threaded through the crowd, with Deep following carefully behind. When the lion bent down to touch Nye's head, she squealed with laughter, her cheeks flushed with delight. James bought papier-mâché masks for her, one of which she immediately wore before darting around the square. James himself donned a jade rabbit mask, sending Deep into laughter. You're grown, yet still so playful, she teased, lifting her phone to capture the scene. Soon, music thundered from the stage. Dancers in vibrant costumes prepared to perform. James lifted NHI onto his shoulders so she could see above the crowd. The lights danced across her face, her eyes wide with wonder. Deep stood beside them, feeling a warmth inside her chest. It had been so long since she had seen her daughter shine with such fearless joy. When the MC invited children to join the lantern parade, NHI turned to James, her gaze full of hope. He nodded, stepping back to watch her march proudly among the children. Deep used the quiet moment to lean toward James. Thank you, she whispered. Without you, we wouldn't have had a night like this. James looked at her, his voice steady but tender. I only want you both to be happy. From now on, every Mid-Autumn festival, I'll take you out to celebrate. Mooncakes under the moon. When the parade ended, organizers handed out mooncakes to the children. NHI returned, clutching 2 cakes, one for James, one for Deep. They sat together on a nearby bench, tasting the sweetness while watching the festival continue around them. Above, the full moon glowed like a silent witness. Tonight, James said softly, feels like the most beautiful Mid-Autumn festival ever. Deep's eyes shone as she nodded. NHI, munching happily, pointed toward the sky. I wish every year could be like this one. As lanterns still flickered along the roadside, James guided Deep and NHI back to the car. The ride home was filled with Nye's cheerful humming of the lantern procession song, her new lantern clutched tightly in her arms. James glanced into the rearview mirror and froze for a heartbeat. The image, a child in the back seat, deep smiling gently beside him, looked and felt like a real family. Homecoming peace. Back home, the wooden house exhaled its familiar scent. Deep brewed hot tea while James set out the extra mooncakes. Nhi carefully placed her lantern on the shelf before scampering back to sit between them, talking nonstop about the lion dance, the masks, and the glowing parade. James and Deep listened in silence, exchanging small smiles in the pauses. The peace was palpable, a stark contrast to the difficult days behind them. Later, when Nye's energy waned, she leaned against her mother's shoulder. James whispered, "I'm glad you both laughed so much tonight. All I want is a peaceful life for you." Deep paused, her eyes reflecting the moonlight that streamed through the window. She nodded softly. "I want that too. Whatever tomorrow brings, I know you'll be here." In that moment, words were unnecessary. Their silence carried more weight than any promise. Suddenly, Nhi stirred, her voice bright again. "Uncle James, are we still going out tomorrow?" James chuckled, patting her head. "If you behave, I'll take you out every day this week." Deep smiled, hugging her daughter. The three of them sat together beneath the golden glow of the lamp, framed in warmth and love. It was more than just a mid-autumn night. It was a night of reunion, of rediscovered peace, of a family that, through hardship and joy, had found each other again.